I wanted to talk about the poll that came out recently from the Detroit Chamber that shows the disconnect between where Michiganders think Michigan ranks and where Michigan actually ranks, and all of these key metrics.
At some points during Republican governor, who would have thought, we're at top 10 in all of these stats, and now we're in the bottom 10 8 years later.
Do you think there are consequences of the people of Michigan not realizing the direction the state is going in?
Oh, for sure. How can you address a problem if you don't think the problem exists, right? And yeah, the damage is you get people, elected officials reelected that are passing really bad policies consistently that are making the state worse because people aren't cued in to what's going wrong and what needs to get fixed, and then who are the right people to fix it. Gretchen Whitmer has over 50% approval rating. People want to absolve her of responsibility of these things, but a lot of these things she ran on, right? And not only did she not accomplish things, but things got worse. We were top 10 in so many of these categories, right? And then at the end of her governorship, she's going to be bottom 10 in all these categories. And if you asked her about it or had her speak on these issues, that she would never mention that. Right. She's hiding it. So she's culpable in the fact that she just isn't being honest.
I will say too, we pick on the governor a lot for this. The other Democrats are lying too.
Right?
It's not like the State House Democrats and the State Senate Democrats are being any more honest about this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And again,
no state has had a faster drop in per person income over 25 years ever. The reality that she's created in Michigan is that the best financial decision most of these young couples can make is leaving Michigan.
Yeah.
You lived here your whole life. We love this state. We love the people of this state. We want people to be successful here. And not only is she saying she has no more F's to give, she's trying to somehow tout finances as a win here in Michigan.
Where our state government creates an environment that makes employment difficult, that makes income levels lower than the average. You're putting a financial strain not just on an individual, but families. We need to hold politicians accountable, do our best to stay informed, and then make the correct decisions at the ballot box based on what we are, based on our findings, right? We're 44th in reading. We're 41st in income. We are 34th in college graduation. We're 45th in unemployment.
So, Mike.
Yes. Gabe. We're back.
We're back.
I'm excited.
I'm surprised they did not take us off the air after the first one.
Well, you know what? That's the benefit of owning your own YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're giving the people what they want, though.
Yes,
we had at least one person ask for more. So
you know what? My mom, my dad, big fans. Big fans.
So today I wanted to talk about the poll that came out recently from the Detroit Chamber that shows the disconnect between where Michiganders think Michigan ranks and where Michigan actually ranks, and all of these key metrics. So you've probably seen a little bit about this poll so far.
Yeah. I mean, this poll came out, but this is something that's like super common. This is not like a new thing where people just have a tendency to think that their lives or their state or their community is a lot better off than it actually is compared to the rest of the country or the other outside communities and such. But I mean, I think these stats showed pretty much in things like literacy. What were some of the other ones?
Income, unemployment.
Yeah. I think everybody assumed we were pretty much middle of the pack, talking out of the 50 states.
Right.
And yeah, I think a lot of people would answer that way, but the truth is,
we're failing in like almost every single metric.
Yeah.
I mean, it's catastrophic.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. We're probably anywhere between, 45th to close to 50th in all of these categories. So, we at some points during Republican governor, who would have thought, we're at top 10 in all of these stats, and now we're in the bottom 10 8 years later.
Yeah.
So quite telling.
I know, we're 44th in literacy. We're 45th in unemployment. Per person income has dropped dramatically relative to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to ask, what do you think? Do you think there are consequences of the people of Michigan not realizing the direction the state is going in?
Oh, for sure. I mean, how can you address a problem if you don't think the problem exists, right? I think that what we fall into in Michigan, and anywhere where we are proud of our state or proud of our community, is that a lot of our aspirations for what we want things to be or how we want Michigan to be, kind of cloud our perception of what reality is, right? And yeah, the damage is you get people, elected officials, reelected that are passing really bad policies consistently that are, making the state worse, because people aren't cued in to what's going wrong and what needs to get fixed, and then who are the right people to fix it. So, you're kind of self-defeating by thinking things are better than they are.
Right.
So,
yeah, and in spite of all of this, in spite of these massive drops in achievement across the state, it's 2/3 of kids can't read a grade level right now, but Gretchen Whitmer still has a 51% approval rating.
Yeah.
Do you see a disconnect there?
52%?
52%. Gretchen
Gabe,
Whitmer still has a...
You didn't do the right prep work for this. You were off by 1%. Oh, 52%. Yeah, that's true. That is true. That'll be me on my secret sub account. I just do it to criticize you on YouTube videos. Yeah,
he is one of our reply guys for sure.
I'm one of the. I compliment me in the replies on my sub account, and then I trash on you. But I'm just joking, Gabe.
Oh, I know.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking about one of the mean comments that somebody left, and it made me laugh again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What did you say? Oh, yeah, Gretchen Whitmer. We'll talk about someone who deserves negative comments who doesn't get them, right? Like Gretchen Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer has over 50% approval rating. We've reelected her as governor, especially after COVID, which, all of us understandably want to forget, but things were real bad in Michigan with Gretchen Whitmer's leadership, and we still reelected her. Did you just spill coffee on yourself? Oh,
I sure did, Mike. I sure did.
And that's why the mugs are...
Well, I'll tell you, you know what? This is what happens. Gretchen Whitmer gets people all worked up, and they ruin their beautiful dress shirt.
I just know Caitlin's going to find a way to keep that in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, though, seriously, though, Gretchen Whitmer has a high approval rating, but the buck stops with her. People want to absolve her of responsibility of these things, but a lot of these things she ran on, right? And not only did she not accomplish things, but things got worse. We were top 10 in so many of these categories, right? And then at the end of her governorship, she's going to be bottom 10 in all of these categories. At some point, even if you don't want to give her 100% of the blame, she has to take some share of the blame as the leader of this state, as the governor. And it's frustrating, though, because why does she have such a high approval rating? Well, I think I go back to this this initial topic of, people have really high aspirations for what they want out of their state. So it like clouds their opinions. They'll say, oh, we're probably middle of the pack. We're not that bad on literacy, right? They do the same thing with our leaders. Michigan likes a homegrown Midwestern politician, and, for good reason. It's a great, culture and community that we have in the Midwest and specifically in Michigan. We want people and our leaders to reflect our personalities and our values and our culture. And so, Gretchen Whitmer, to her credit, has done a very good job playing that role of that Midwestern, politician. Aw shucks, everything's going to be okay.
So actually, that makes me wonder, with how we've seen people rank Michigan basically incorrectly. Do you think that Gretchen Whitmer not only bears some responsibility for the crises themselves, but also for people's misconception of the crises?
Well, I mean, she certainly bears a whole heap of responsibility for this. And, I'm not going to pontificate and give a percentage. I will just say she's the governor of the state of Michigan. She ran on these issues. The executive has an immense amount of authority on the execution of policy after it passes through the legislature, but then an immense amount of influence on the legislative agendas that the legislature pursues, especially when she had a trifecta after the 2022 election, had complete Democrat control. You don't think the Democrat governor who was entrenched at this point and talks about her becoming president or vice president, you don't think she wielded that power in the executive branch when her party was in control? So clearly she is responsible to a high level, right?
Right.
But does she bear responsibility for the incorrect perception? I would say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that she's dishonest, right? The fact that she's the governor of a state that is in the bottom 10 of all these categories, and if you asked her about it or had her speak on these issues, that she would never mention that,
Right.
She's hiding it. So she's culpable in the fact that she just isn't being honest about these things and these problems.
Yeah, I mean, when she gives her State of the State, she just gave her last one.
Right.
I mean, she ends each one by saying that the state of the state is strong, and that is probably disingenuous at best.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, and I think I think, yeah, for those reasons and others, she is both culpable to the problem, but culpable to the misconception about the problem. However, we talked about this in our last podcast. This is going to be like my shtick, which my wife hates when I use that word, so I'm gonna use it. The shtick, which is
Calling out
that
the voters.
You get the government you deserve.
Yeah.
You know, I said that last time, and I do think that a lot of this stuff is factual, which means it is searchable, it is findable, and people need to go out of their way to understand what's happening in their state, because if they are participants in the process and they're going out to vote, they're voting for governor, but not just governor, because we talked about there are other culpable figures in this, your state legislator, state senator, member of the state house. You should be going in as an informed citizen, understand the problems your state or your community are facing first, and then make a decision about who's going to be best to fix them, and then you'll get better results. But if you don't even know what the problem is to begin with, because you think, oh, we're 25th, in literacy, that's not great, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. No, we're 44th in literacy.
Yeah.
We're 44th out of 50 states in literacy, right? Understanding that problem, it's a little bit more of a crisis. Then you're going to start to really understand, well, why are we 44th? Why did we go from, I don't recall what we were before, but certainly much higher in the rankings there in literacy. How do we go from that to 44th, right? And then when you understand what's happened policy-wise and what the governor has backed policy-wise, they repealed the third grade reading law in the state of Michigan. You talk about literacy rates. In the state of Michigan, there was a law in place, which parents, by the way, could opt out of, where if your student was not proficient by third grade in their reading proficiency, you would not automatically just be shoved into the fourth grade without the ability to read. They say, grades K through 3, you learn to read, and grades 4 on, you read to learn. Right. So if you can't read going into fourth grade, we should have a discussion in statute. We should be protecting students from being shoved through a system that's only concerned with graduation rather than making sure that people are understanding, the core source material. So that was a policy that the governor signed the repeal of, that her Democrat-led legislature repealed. Problem, solution, right? You have to understand these things. So voters have to be informed on these things.
I think for a lot of that, the part that's the most frustrating to me is how we have all of these drops in the metrics. We have this 44th in literacy ranking, but the entire time the governor, that's somebody that people are supposed to trust, people are supposed to be able to look at leadership for answers or reassurance or honesty. She's supposed to be a public figure, is basically just saying everything's fine. She's been saying everything's fine for 8 years. Yeah. And it's so frustrating when you know how bad things are getting that she's deliberately ignoring the problem or deliberately being dishonest about it.
Yeah, and I think that the reason that there is this dishonesty is because people are so entrenched in their ideologies that to come to terms with the fact that your worldview, or let's not even attack liberal policies in general. Let's just take it policy by policy, right? We're just talking about literacy. Tangibly, the liberal political agenda when it comes to literacy in Michigan has failed.
Right.
She became governor. She got a trifecta. They repealed protections to our students that would prevent them from continuing through their schooling without being able to read. They repealed those things because, certain power brokers on the left pushed them to do those policies, right? But they listened to those people. They believed that was the right thing to do, and they failed. And when you fail, especially in politics, it is almost impossible to get a politician to admit that they did something wrong. And that's, again, Democrats and Republicans.
Well, and even more, we're not just asking Gretchen Whitmer to admit that she did something wrong. It's even more that these last 8 years have been a complete waste of everybody's time.
Yeah.
They've actually been detrimental to the state of Michigan. And so it would be even better if she had been asleep at the wheel, we'd be better off than we are right now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if you had done nothing.
Yeah.
Just get elected, do nothing, we'd be better off.
Right.
Yeah, and that's true to an extent. Obviously, we need to, as a state, always be adapting to the new things. But to your point, the damage that is done through pursuing these policies is you would be better off sitting tight. But the sad reality of these policy failures is, like, we read the statistic, 44th, and we're like, oh, wow, oof, damn. There are real people behind these failures. Like, the literacy one is probably the most tragic.
Yeah.
Because, we talk about, let's just say the midway point through Gretchen Whitmer's governorship, right? Let's say 4 years in, or her new trifecta, right? Beginning of her second term. The children that she failed at the beginning of her second term or towards the end of her first term are now 3 years, depending on when you start that measurement, 3 years on from that failure. And that failure was building up over the previous 4 years, right? Those kids are now in middle school, and they are not reading at a proficient literacy level, and they're getting into complex subjects that, if they don't master them in their middle school and eventually high school age, their adulthood is going to be impacted through the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to bring up about the people behind it, because I think people who work in advocacy, who talk about government a lot, they have a tendency to look at these statistics kind of like a box score.
Yeah. And
they're just sort of ignoring the actual real people who make up those numbers. I mean, if we look at the unemployment, we're 45th in the country. I mean,
45th in unemployment.
Everybody knows somebody
that's actually even a little higher than I thought. But yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you probably know people who are struggling to find a job. Most people know people who are struggling to find a job. And I think a lot of people think that that's the exception when it's more and more becoming the rule in Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the employment thing is tough. Again, it's on so many levels, right? On top of the fact that people that may be dealing with it and the immense stresses. Like, we talk about, and there's so many things in society you think about, like, we're young. I just got married. You're engaged. We're starting our families, right? The number one cause of divorce is finances. And when the government creates systems, or our state government creates an environment that makes employment difficult, that makes income levels lower than the average, you're putting a financial strain not just on an individual, but families, and the generational effect that has.
Right.
Let's say you as a couple overcome your financial tensions in your marriage, right? But you make a decision, but I'm not going to have children just now, right?
Right.
Or I did have children, I need to move to another state to take care of those children, right? It goes back to what you were saying, like, it's not a box score. This is not like, oh, great, well, we could say that the Democrats suck because we're now in the bottom 10. This is not good. We don't want that. I would love for Gretchen Whitmer to have not done the amount of damage that she did. And yeah, you know what? It might make it harder to explain people to the nuanced level of why her policies are worse than our policies, which we would still believe to be true. but at least the victims that we're talking about right now are not suffering.
Right.
This should bring nobody any pleasure. No political candidate on the Republican side running, certainly not anybody within our organization. But these are the real world effects, and you go back to the original thing. Oh, what do you think our literacy or unemployment rate or whatever average a Michigan citizen, middle of the pack.
Right.
You just brush all that stuff we just talked about. It just gets brushed off like it's nothing.
Right. And I mean, to talk, yeah.
Before I just want to bring up the finances portion, and with Whitmer, she was at the Mackinac Policy Conference not too long ago, and she had talked about something to the effect of, my time as governor is going to be defined by 5 F's, and the ones she gave was factories, foundations, finances, fixing the damn roads, and freedoms. And then she ended the speech by saying, so I guess you can say, I have no more F's to give.
I have one more: failure on all of those previous things. That was a good line. Did I just come up with that? Was that a money line? Hell yeah. I have one. Yeah. That would be it's so funny that she said that, because, and this is why we talked about her popularity.
Right.
Like, that's how people in Michigan talk. Like, she said it not in like a nasty, whatever, like off-putting way. She said it in like the way us Midwesterners talk to each other, right?
Right.
Very like off-the-cuff, casual, whatever, just, not mean-spirited. She has that effect. And yet, what an insulting thing to say.
Right.
Hey, child who can't read, I have no more F's to give to you.
Right.
Except for the scores. There's another money line. Except for all the F's you're getting on your exams and things because you can't read.
And I mean, to your point about the people trying to figure out their finances, like, the reality that she's created in Michigan is that the best financial decision most of these young couples can make is leaving Michigan.
Yeah.
Like, that is the best financial decision that they're going to be able to make, which is really heartbreaking for me. I've lived here my whole life. Yeah. You lived here your whole life. We love this state. We love the people of this state. Mm-hmm. We want people to be successful here. Mm-hmm. And not only is she saying she has no more F's to give, she's trying to somehow tout finances as a win here in Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the human factor of this is always important, because this is the root of that original thing of people's misconceptions about things, is that you lose the human factor of this and the human cost to this, right? We talk about moving out of Michigan, which is like, break that out. If you have family in Michigan, I have a big family. I have a lot of cousins, first, second cousins, third cousins, like our family parties are big. So I have a big family. But even for moderate or small families, just your parents and your siblings, maybe your grandparents, right? If you're close with your family, and families make up our communities, right? And you are forced to leave, not by choice, right? You are sacrificing time with your aging parents or grandparents. You're sacrificing time with your siblings and potentially nieces or nephews, if you have that. These are human things that we need as a society to function properly. Like our existence is not get up, go to work, make money, pay taxes, go home, go to sleep, wake up, go to work, and repeat. Like, that is not humanity. Like, humanity is you don't live to work, you work to live, right? And you take that success and you enrich your life and the lives of the people around you with your hard work, and you do your best, right? Like, that's what the life is. These policy failures are genuinely the antithesis of human nature. It's forcing us to rip apart our families, right, on the unemployment side, or move away from our families at the very least. It could cause financial strain that tear families apart with divorce, by creating unemployment and income issues. It creates a situation where you have students going through a school system that they then come out into the real world unprepared, and they now have to compete, by the way, with other states whose students, and now adults in this scenario, are better educated, I should say.
Right.
And they have better income opportunities. And some Michigan student who's graduated from a system that they can't read at proficient levels, they now have to go to another state like Tennessee, or even Mississippi, right? And compete for higher paying jobs there.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah,
right?
and one of the things that the governor loves to say about literacy is she says, well, this literacy crisis is a nationwide problem. And I think a lot of people just sort of believe that on spec. They sort of think about they know that we have problems here in Michigan, but they don't fully grasp how we're dealing with these issues as they come up so much worse than other states are dealing with these issues. Like Mississippi is a perfect example of a state that took the literacy crisis head on, made real strides, made real improvement. And so even though some people are aware that there are things that are wrong in Michigan, they think that there are things that are wrong everywhere when they're not wrong everywhere.
Right.
Like if they were wrong everywhere, people wouldn't be moving.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I would say that this is typically a tactic that the left does, but again, I will always contextualize and say it's not mutually exclusive, like that Republicans can be guilty of this too. But I think that they tend to identify problems and either to cover up their own failures, say everybody's dealing with it, or to try to rile people up over something that's not actually a problem, make it sound like there's a bigger problem than it actually is, right? And yeah, it sets people up for failure. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, when you have leaders that are not being upfront with the electorate about things, there is a certain amount of culpability to the voter, yes, but even for the leaders, how are the people who have the power of the vote to enact change through their vote, how are they supposed to address problems they don't know that exist? So it's it's really troubling. It's really troubling. But the silver lining on it is that we talk about these things as if it's an unstoppable train, right? Voters are uninformed, the leaders suck, and they pass crappy policies, and that it is just impossible to just turn that, stop that train, right? But you brought up the Mississippi miracle, right? And I think that is such a good example of something that seemed like an insurmountable task, and they were able to turn around. So what, Mississippi were they 50th? Did we know that?
They were 49th.
49th. Okay. 49th in literacy nationwide in a matter of, I want to say 10 years?
Yeah, they went from 49th to 8th in 10 years.
49th to 8th in 10 years, is that right? It's something like that. We're going to fact check this, people. We're not looking to spit out inaccurate stats.
An F that Whitmer didn't give is family, like you mentioned.
Oh, that too.
Yeah.
You were just holding on to that. You really wanted to just drop that in there.
And I was like, ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, she clearly cares about her family. She's trying to help her husband get her boat launched early, and I mean...
Mississippi Miracle refers to a dramatic turnaround in Mississippi's elementary reading scores, where the state went from near last in nation rankings in 2013 to the top 10 by 2024.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the stat, right? Like they went from not only bottom 10, but like literally 49th, right? So basically the bottom.
And I'll also just want to say too, it's not like they were there. That was a blip. Like Mississippi had been generationally like one of the worst literacy states in the U.S.
And they took that, and 10 years later, 10, 11 years later, they're in the top 10 now in literacy. It's incredible. What did they do? So this is where it's like, what did they do to get there? Because it's like these problems, we're 44th now. We replaced Mississippi.
Right.
Think about that. We replaced Mississippi in literacy, and the same time they replaced us.
And I think one of the things that's just so horrifying about the Democrat trifecta is this is when Mississippi is reaching the top, right? 2022, 2023, 2024. Yeah. And under that Democrat trifecta, they actively undid some of the things that Mississippi was doing that were working. Yeah. One of the ways that Mississippi turned the ship around, third grade retention law. Yep. That was one of the first priorities of the Democrat trifecta, was getting rid of proven policy that works.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
It's like not only do we have the blueprint, they're actively ignoring the blueprint.
Yeah, they're burning it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's, a warning, right, that we are always trying to make to people of understand these policy pursuits that the Democrats are making and understand the damage they do. But it also should serve as an optimistic look at how quickly you can turn things around. The sad thing is, the Mississippi Miracle they took 10 years. Imagine, again, the human cost here. Even if you get a Republican trifecta and they pass all of these laws, the year one of that trifecta, right? They pass the laws. You know who's still suffering due to no fault of that Republican trifecta? The students in that year that didn't get to benefit from that legislation.
Right.
Year two, you start to see some turnaround. Year 3, 4, 5, it gets better. But, there are always, you could get a Republican trifecta and the victims, the bleed over of the victims from the previous administration are still going to exist.
Right.
And that's why you should always be, even for us, this is where we need to, as conservatives who pursue conservative policy solutions, we always need to be sensitive to that. Even when we get our victories, there are still people that up until the day of, and certainly with the way policy gets implemented, there's still a delay in the implementation. There's still people suffering the consequences of the previous administration. And we should be conscious of those things and sensitive to those things. So, but there is hope. So that's a good thing about the Mississippi miracle with the literacy rates. On the economy, though, there are so many factors. Cost of living is such a huge issue for people right now. And this is where this stat, where people thought we were still middle of the pack, I think that was maybe a little higher, but still under 30.
Right.
What was the stat there? What was for the economy or for income? Rather, 27th. Yeah, Michiganders thought we were 27th, and what we're 41st.
41st.
So bottom 10 again.
No
right?
state has had a faster drop in per person income over 25 years ever.
There you go. And that one is particularly shocking to me because cost of living is such a huge issue for all of us right now.
Right.
Certainly when we look at our home budget, right, at home, but everybody, right, it's such a huge issue. And to not even know that by living in Michigan, the cost of living crisis is particularly worse for you than it is everywhere else.
Right.
Because the income that you're making in Michigan is insufficient,
right,
to deal with the rising costs. So we talk about politicians needing to enact policy that will bring down the cost of living, which there are absolutely things we can do to do that, and we could talk about that in a second. But let's just start with the basics of let's live in a state where I make more money,
right,
so that when a cost of living crisis does come, I at least have a little bit more of a buffer to face that headwind. But we don't have that in Michigan. There is no buffer left. All right, maybe a few more states that we can, claim we're better than, but barely any. Right? We have no buffer on income. We have no buffer on unemployment. We have no buffer on literacy. Where do we have left to go?
Right.
Right?
That's actually another thing to be hopeful about is we're already pretty much at the bottom, so we only go up.
Yeah, for real.
75% of Michiganders were unaware of the drop in income.
75%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we wonder why problems take so long to solve. And I don't say this like, you asked me this last podcast, like, do I resent people for this, right? But I don't put the blame on them. We all have our lives to live.
Right.
Right? We do this for a living. We're busy.
Right.
This is our job. I hosted my family's Memorial Day party last weekend. So I was working and I was like trying to get ready for that, to go out of town, to get things all set up for the family. We had to go to the store, we had to go shopping, I had to cook a bunch of food. I was tired by the end of that weekend. The only reason I know any of this is because I eat, sleep, and breathe this for a living.
Right.
Take my job and make it anything that's not policy or politics.
Right.
Right? And you add in normal life like I just described there.
Right.
When do you have the time to really stay?
That's why I really keep picking on Gretchen Whitmer and her rhetoric about this so much. I'm not disagreeing that people have some responsibility to learn and to learn more about the rankings and where Michigan's going and what good policy is. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, because people are so busy, because they don't do this for a living like we do, they rely on people like the governor to find out the state of our state. Yeah. And basically every opportunity that she has, she's dishonest with them. So these rankings really actually don't surprise me that much when you've listened to the governor for 8 years, and you know that she's lying to people about how poorly things are going here in Michigan. And I think that's why I'm just so frustrated with what comes out of her administration.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, the easiest target, and frankly the most fixable, because it's one person. All Gretchen Whitmer has to do to make sure that other people are more informed about how bad things are is to just tell the truth. Right? So what the frustration I think comes from is it's like you're just one person. We talk about politics in these, like, we're a nation of 350 million people, and Michigan is like 10 million, and there's all these people. What can one person do? One person can actually make a big impact when it comes to informing.
Right.
But
She's just terrified of the political consequences.
I will push back on one thing, though. Not to get too philosophical here, but whatever. Life is hard, and life is hard in every single aspect of life. If you're a child in the school system, life is hard because you're figuring things out. You don't have the benefit of perspective. You know, you're going through growth and changes, and it's like life is hard as a student. You get out of being a student and you get into the real world, and you're like, wow, school was not as preparing me for, what was, in store for me. And you have to deal with the growing pains of being a young adult, trying to establish a career. And then, for the average American, getting married and being in a committed relationship, also very hard. Having kids and implementing that into all the other stuff, very hard, very hard, very hard. Life is hard. Your system of government, the society that you live in, not working, and people want to be like, well, but I don't have time. This shouldn't be this hard. Why shouldn't it be this hard? We are a country of 350 million plus, probably more than that, people. We are a state with tens of billions of dollars in budgets, with government departments, thousands of employees. We have intricate road networks. We have people pick up your trash. I live in Royal Oak. They pick up my leaves. I blow them into the street. This is like a complex system, and people are like, well, I don't have time for it, and it shouldn't be this hard. Come on.
But to counter that, too, I'll make this point as well, is you and I do spend most of our waking hours thinking about these things and reading about these things.
I'm not saying they have to do that.
What I'm reminding you of is...
They don't have to be weird like us.
You and I still miss things. Yeah. It's like we spend a ton of times doing this, and there's like people will talk to us about articles that we didn't see. People will talk to us about issues that we don't know enough about. So even though this is our full-time job, I think there's still even... So
nobody's asking for perfect, though, Gabe. Don't get me wrong, and I should clarify this because it's not the impression I'm trying to leave. Like, no parent is perfect, right? No career and no job performance is perfect. No schooling performance is perfect. Like, nobody's asking for perfection, but you have to put some level of effort into these things because these things are complicated. These things are complex. Life is complicated. They are hard. So, sure. Do I forgive people? Of course, for not knowing like how bad Michigan is doing in literacy, especially if like you don't have children in the school system. Of course, like I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that people should view government and policy and politics as something deserving somewhat of their time and efforts, because ultimately, we don't live in a dictatorship, unlike what some people like to say because they're all out of their minds. We don't live in a dictatorship. We do vote for these people. We're the ones putting these people in charge. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have a free society where you're democratically electing your members of the legislature, and in Michigan, our governor too. You can't have that and then also say, and I shouldn't have to put that much work into making sure that the people I'm hiring for this job are qualified to do the job, or if they're qualified to do it based on, their track record, I was a business owner, whatever, are the policies that they say they're going to implement actually good, or are they bad? Like, these are basic responsibilities that we have. And again, not saying people have to be perfect. To your point, I miss things, you miss things, and we eat, sleep, and breathe this. So this is not, you don't have to be perfect, but you have to take some level of responsibility. And this is why, when voters go to the voting booths in November, right, they need to at least feel like they've done some level of research. I watched some attack ad that said that so-and-so was a piece of crap, right? Do some research, understand the process a little bit.
Watch our podcast.
Watch our podcast, right? Or even just say, you know what, at a base level, we had these stats back here, but we didn't actually cheat by looking at them. I'm actually going to read these things, okay? We're 44th in reading. We're 41st in income. We are 34th in college graduation. We're 45th in unemployment. We are 45th in high-tech jobs. Think about what our economy looks like right now and why that's a huge problem. Bottom 10, we've had a Democrat governor for 8 years. The Dems just got out of a trifecta where, Republicans were able to flip the House back, not the Senate, so the Dems still have a lot of control. When you're going to the voting booth, look at those stats and ask yourself, are the people that were just in charge the people that we should be putting back in charge? That's all I'm saying. Ask the question.
Right.
And understandably, if you don't have the time to understand, and I, again, totally get this, the issues, the core problems, why is this so bad, at least know where we're at. At least know Michigan, after 8 years of Gretchen Whitmer, is in the bottom 10 in almost every category. And those are just some of the categories, right? We're in the bottom 10 of other categories.
Right.
Let that be your guiding light, when electing people. If you really don't have the time, fine. But don't reward people who have done anything but earn a reward.
Yeah.
And I actually have a question going that too. And I think you addressed it at the beginning, but why do you think that voters even have this misconception about Michigan failures? Because you hear everyone talking about it. You mentioned families, you mentioned coworkers, people that you know. Mm-hmm. Everyone's feeling it. Everyone's feeling like, I don't make enough money, or I'm unemployed right now, or I know someone who is. My kid can't read. Why do you, with all of these things that they know, why do you think that we're just in the middle of the pack? What's causing the misconception?
Well, I think it goes back to a lot of the things we've talked about, right? I think that the governor is being dishonest, and she's a popular figure that people listen to more. She has a wide audience, right?
I will say too, we pick on the governor a lot for this. The other Democrats are lying too.
Yeah, right. Right. She's just their figurehead. She's their figurehead in Michigan. Right. But yeah, all of her lackeys.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not like the state house Democrats and the state Senate Democrats are being any more honest about this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's broad dishonesty there. And so that's part of it. But I go back to something I said earlier, and this is more of just like a, philosophical thing about like Midwesterners. I think this is a great thing about, this is why I don't want to leave Michigan, and other people shouldn't want to leave Michigan. We are a very naturally optimistic people.
Yeah.
I think that we are also a very forgiving people. We want to believe the best in people. And so when you have politicians that are, play the role well, like I said, with Gretchen Whitmer, but then also when you just have these aspirations for the community and the state that you live in, the expectations that, like, even if things are bad, like, we'll be fine.
Right.
Like, you're going to trick yourself into thinking that things are not as bad as they actually are. And I don't think this is a bad quality. This is a good thing, because I would hate to live in a community or a state where people were all Debbie Downers and just jerks to each other and whatnot. Like, it's just such a huge perk of living in Michigan, where I think we're still in the top 10
right.
of that quality. But
I think it's kind of part of our culture too, to feel like we're right in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
We kind of feel like,
we know
some people have crazy accents. Some people, like the people are on one side or the other, are kind of like on the extremes. But like when people talk about middle America, they're usually talking about us. And when people ask about how does the average American feel, we kind of feel like that's us. And so in some ways, if you don't know what's going on, it just kind of makes sense to feel like we would be in the middle of the pack.
Right. Yeah. So I think that answers your question. But I think broadly speaking, this is all solved by what we've all been discussing here. And I'm sure we'll continue to discuss in future podcasts, right? It's that we need to hold politicians accountable, do our best to stay informed, and then make the correct decisions at the ballot box based on, what we are, based on our findings, right?
Yeah.
But there is hope for the future. There truly is. And this is, I think, the one death spiral thing that people get in on the internet and whatever, is that it just seems unstoppable.
Yeah.
The failure. But I'll quote Marco Rubio, who I love dearly. I love this guy. You know, we cannot be orderly, shepherds of our decline, right? Like, we need to do something about it. Like, we cannot go out quietly. And there are ways to turn things around very quickly, and we should have the hope and optimism to do that. And yeah,
Awesome.
I feel like that's a good spot to end.
Yeah, I think that's a nice positive note to call it a day.
All right.
Like we said, can't get any worse.
Can't get any worse. Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me, Gabe.
Hey, thanks for coming back, Mike.
All right. Oh, follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, TikTok.
Yep.
And you should just follow all those posts, and you should also subscribe to our email list because
And YouTube. We're going to post this
Oh,
whole
and
thing
YouTube.
on YouTube.
And
we have
YouTube.
no YouTube subscribers, so it'd be great
And I
if
will
you guys
also
popped
say
over
this
there.
guy right here, he writes some great press releases, and so you should subscribe to our email list because you'll get some of those, and that's a good way to stay informed about what's going on. So like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.